We often think that we know everything about our planet, but we can't even imagine the diverse creatures living next to us. Some of them could easily replace humans if they were a little luckier. Besides their primary brain, they have 8 smaller brains in different body parts. And these additional brains make decisions on their own. And under our feet, there may be a whole civilization that outnumbers humanity by 6 orders of magnitude. That is 1.5 million times more than us. They have a clear hierarchy, professions, and career ladders, but at the same time, a simple infection can literally turn them into zombies. Is this something out of post-apocalyptic science fiction? And these cute flying creatures are some of the most fierce and successful predators on Earth. Their hunting efficiency is almost impeccable. Nothing can save you from the attack of these nearly perfect killers. In this video, we will visit the Museum of Terrestrial Life. Whether you are a science enthusiast, a nature lover, or simply curious about the world around you, the Museum of Terrestrial Life is an excellent place to visit and deepen your understanding of the incredible diversity of life on Earth. The Museum of Terrestrial Life.
Imagine a creature that has 3 hearts, pumping blue blood through the vessels. Although it has an almost amorphous body resembling a bag of water, it can easily open a bottle, even a baby-proofed one. It can feel light and even taste with its skin. It has no ears, but it hears well, even in the infrarange. It can constantly change color and texture, becoming indistinguishable from the environment, even though it doesn't identify colors at all and sees the world in black and white. It's venomous and can be hostile, but at the same time, it's curious and even playful. On top of that, it's highly intelligent and can solve non-trivial problems. In addition to the main brain, it has 8 smaller brains in different parts of the body. And these additional brains make their own decisions. Who is this monster? Does it come from Earth? Yes, you got that right. It's an octopus. And of course, it comes from our planet. Although, some scientists entertain another idea. But first things first. The mystery of the octopus. We are certainly used to modern octopuses or octopi. Everyone has known these creatures since childhood, and this somewhat reduces our perceptual acuity. Seeing these shots, many feel surprised, but hardly anyone feels excitement or delight, even though the metamorphoses of the X-Men superheroes aren't that different. But for some reason, we perceive what we see in movies as something extraordinary, and yet we can't recognize that similar things that happen in nature can be no less extraordinary. Isn't it time to revisit how we see these creatures? Moreover, octopi are much more interesting than many people think. Octopi belong to the class of cephalopods, which is very ancient and was formed about 530 million years ago. At that time, there was hardly anything resembling fish, not to mention reptiles or mammals. The early ancestor of the octopus was quite small, had a protective shell, and crawled along the ocean floor. Unfortunately, having a protective shell makes species evolve very slowly. For example, turtles have stayed virtually unchanged for millions of years. But about 140 million years ago, something went wrong, and these creatures evolved to be shellless. With a soft and defenseless body and no camouflage, clumsy octopus ancestors had very slim chances of survival. This was the moment of truth. Either cephalopods became easy prey for predators and completely die out, or start developing faster and more creatively. As you can see, the cephalopods decided to fight for life, and radically rebuilt their anatomy. And what they did turned out to be incredibly efficient and completely outside the box. Firstly, the octopi turn their soft and almost amorphous body into a strength, not a weakness. Since the octopus has almost no firm parts except for the beak, it can crawl into any hole, if it's at least a millimeter wider than its eyeball or beak. This allows the octopus to hide in very narrow crevices, which is a powerful evolutionary advantage for escaping large predators, such as sharks or dolphins. Second, octopi have evolved an even smarter way of staying unnoticed. In fact, they're one of the best animals on the planet to disguise themselves. Notice how quickly and unexpectedly it changes color. And not only color, but also texture, that is, patterns. And not only texture, but also their body surface configuration. Changes occur instantly or in stages as the octopus merges with the environment. The animal instantly becomes indistinguishable from a group of algae, coral, sand, stone, or anything else. We've seen this only in sci-fi movies, but at the same time, here it is. What is this guy doing? Does it follow any laws of nature at all? And how is this even possible? Yes, it's really hard to understand. Cephalopod camouflage relies on a system of extremely complex tissues. Chromatophores are scattered throughout the octopus's skin. These are tiny sacs filled with pigment. They densely cover the skin like freckles. The chromatophores can have black, red, or yellow pigment. The sacs are surrounded by radial muscles that can stretch the container, thereby revealing the pigment color. Depending on which sets of chromatophores the octopus opens or closes, it can create stripes, spots, and design entire patterns, instantly becoming indistinguishable from nearby objects or the background. You might think, black, red, and yellow. But what about other colors? For this, the octopus uses a whole different mechanism, which is even cooler. There is a whole layer of highly unusual thin cells that grow in a kind of stacks in the octopus's transparent skin. These are iridophores, which are located directly below the chromatophore layer. And unlike chromatophores, they don't contain pigment, but rather special proteins called reflectins. Their unique property is being able to reflect only certain light wavelengths. It is thanks to iridophores that the octopus can turn into unreal shades of metallic blue and green. But that's not all. Under the iridophore layer, there's another layer with other natural reflectors called leucophores. They reflect the entire spectrum, thereby creating a white color. By combining reflections from iridophores and leucophores with the correct pattern of chromatophores, an octopus can quite convincingly recreate its surroundings. But even that's not all of it. The octopus's camouflage arsenal has a real combo that virtually allows it to disappear from sight altogether. Its skin has another structure, a network of papillae that can change the skin texture, creating rising and falling ridges and bumps. So the octopus imitates not only the color and pattern of the surroundings, but even the surface configuration. Do you spot an octopus here? I don't see it either. Nobody does. And yet, it's in front of us. With all these tools, the soft-bodied, shell-less octopus has been fooling oceanic predators for millions of years. But octopi rely on more than just their camouflage to survive. The way they manage their body is an even more effective survival tool. When octopi travel across the sea floor, they have to constantly register the background to change their camouflage accordingly. They are lightning fast at making decisions. Observations have shown that an octopus can change its camouflage 177 times an hour. And the octopus's camouflage reaction speed is up to 200 milliseconds, which is faster than that of any other animal. To put this in perspective, it takes about 20 seconds for a chameleon to completely change its color. Considering how fast the octopus reacts to its surroundings and the accuracy of reproducing colors, patterns, and shapes, one naturally comes to wonder whether this guy has amazing eyesight. How does it manage to see so well and distinguish colors so accurately with a pair of regular eyes? And here comes an even bigger surprise. The octopus generally can't distinguish colors with its eyes at all. It's completely colorblind. Oh my God, what? How is this possible? How can it reproduce the colors that it can't even accurately see? Just recently, scientists started to research this question. Detailed studies conducted in 2015 showed some convincing results. Researchers discovered that octopus skin is sensitive to light due to photoreceptor genes in the skin. Even when the skin is separated from the body, it can react to light and change the shape of chromatophores. Scientists have realized that an octopus can see not only with its eyes, but also with its skin. One can only wonder how the sense of sight is processed by the octopus's brain and consciousness. Hold on, did I just say octopus consciousness? Did I say it out loud? Well, I'll have to explain what I mean. Moreover, this is perhaps the most amazing thing about octopuses, even cooler than their camouflaging talents. But first, let's start with their nervous system. We take for granted our centralized hierarchical nervous system. However, the octopus convincingly proves that everything can be completely different. Imagine that in addition to the contents of the skull, each of your arms and legs has a brain of its own. And these 4 brains are totally independent of the central nervous system and can make their own decisions. Feet go wherever they please. Hands grab whatever they want. For real, they literally do whatever they please. Can you imagine what it is like to think with 5 brains? How will the most diverse impulses be managed within such a complex physiological structure? What part will be responsible for your consciousness? Maybe there are 5 personalities living in such an organism at once. It makes for a good Hollywood movie, but the reality is much more thrilling than any movie. We somehow can get used to the fact that an octopus has 3 hearts. There's one major heart that pumps blood throughout the whole body. The other 2 are specialized to pump blood only through the gills. But how do you like the fact that each of its tentacles also has a separate mini-brain? And this is no exaggeration. These nerve clusters can make decisions completely independently. If you cut off the poor fellow's tentacle, it will continue to react to the environment, run away from threats, and try to grab potential prey. The octopus's nervous system isn't concentrated in the brain, which serves as a centralized organ of analysis and control. Their skeletonless body can bend anywhere and in any direction. Such flexibility calls for equally complex and flexible control. In the process of evolution, octopuses have learned to delegate authority by literally outsourcing local problems to their own limbs. For example, when a person opens a jar, their brain focuses on what the sense organs feel and gives appropriate signals to the hand muscles. Squeeze the jar with a certain force, make some movement, take a stable position, and many more fine motor commands. All these instructions come from the center. But it's enough for the octopus to trigger the desired behavioral response by saying, "Tentacle number 5, open the jar. It's not my problem how you do it. I'll be here waiting." Thinking limbs independently manage complex manipulations and transformations, receiving only general instructions from the central part. By the way, there's every reason to believe that the octopus changes the surface pattern consciously, and not just reflexively or adaptively. This might seem like total science fiction, I know. But there is direct evidence that the cephalopod can mimic dozens of both living and non-living objects that make up its ecological habitat. For example, when observing an octopus in its natural environment, people sometimes confuse it with a stingray, a echinoderm brittle, and even a jellyfish. The octopus often does this without actually needing camouflage, but just for fun. This amazing nervous system structure raises a whole set of other questions. What is it like to be a creature with 9 brains? What could such a personality be like? And what would octopi evolve into in another 100 or 2 million years? If a furless two-legged monkey doesn't completely ruin this planet in all this time? Will it have some absolutely real consciousness? Even based on very little data available, we can confidently assert octopus's outstanding mental abilities. For example, it's known for certain that octopi easily recognize human faces. Previously, it was believed that only primates, dolphins, and some corvids, such as magpies and crows, can do this. Octopi get used to the person caring for them very quickly, and can really distinguish their owner from other people. There are many curious cases when an octopus recognized people whom they didn't like and swam away from the aquarium wall. It also changed the color to signify aggression and irritation, and vice versa. If the octopus liked somebody, it moved closer to the wall of the fish tank and didn't show any signs of hostility. For example, the octopus is smart enough to easily open a bottle of pills with a special baby-proofed cap. Moreover, it can break free if it is locked inside the jar with a screw cap. The octopus has enough intelligence and tentacle strength for this. Another essential marker of octopus intelligence can be observed during play. When an animal is intelligent enough, it starts to entertain itself whenever it feels safe and bored. When hunger doesn't make it look for food and predators don't pursue it, what is left to do is either sleep or kill time doing something meaningless that has no evolutionary advantage whatsoever. Sounds too close to home, doesn't it? But whatever. One time, experimenters placed an octopus in an empty aquarium, where there was only one secluded place to hide. There were no more attractions. After some time, they threw a plastic jar into the tank. It floated on the water surface in the stream created by the compressor. At first, the octopus simply ignored it, but then it began to shoot a jet of water at the jar, throwing it back out of boredom. The jar came back downstream and everything, and the whole thing was repeated dozens of times. This is such a simple entertainment that absolutely all octopuses came up with in the course of the experiment. Here, just keep in mind we're talking about a cephalopod, not about a dog or a cat, but a pile of goo, damn it! And so no one can come to some unexpected conclusions. The fact is that until now, playing behavior has been considered an exclusively social phenomenon. While playing, animals learn to communicate, dominate, and obey. But the octopus is an absolutely self-sufficient animal, with no hierarchy in social behavior. This makes scientists reconsider the established ideas about the nature of intelligence. Previously, it was believed that it was social ties and communication that at one point drove the intelligence in vertebrates to develop. But in this regard, the octopus easily went against the system. Scientists can make many unexpected discoveries when it comes to studying this extraordinary creature. What complicates things even further is that it's really difficult to observe an octopus in its natural environment, as it prefers solitude. And setting up experiments in a laboratory on collected individuals isn't that simple. Therefore, it's hard to imagine what else this strange creature is capable of. There is another fundamental oddity in all of this. The octopus has managed to go through an evolutionary path that spanned hundreds of millions of years. It survived terrible disasters that wiped out dinosaurs, ichthyosaurs, and many other animals. This raises the question of the very origin of octopi. We love to brag about how different we are from other primates, but if you look at the octopus, at how it differs from its relatives, human achievements don't seem to be that impressive after all. Our evolutionary branches with cephalopods diverged so long ago that we became completely different in terms of anatomy and physiology. The flatworm that was our last common ancestor roamed the seafloor 750 million years ago. After that, evolution took us in different directions. This happened 350 million years before the first tetrapods appeared, which gave rise to all amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals 500 million years before the dinosaurs appeared. But what if it really wasn't like that? What if the octopus really came from another planet? An international team of scientists led by Australian immunologist Edward Steele of the Centre of Astrobiology in Sri Lanka suggested that extraterrestrial retroviruses facilitated evolution on Earth, and some cephalopods even came to our planet in a ready-made form carried by comets. The hypothesis is controversial, but the article was published in the peer-reviewed journal Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology. There's nothing unscientific in the very idea of terrestrial life coming from near or deep space. The panspermia hypothesis is not only recognized, but is actually well-grounded. Organics are found anywhere, in comets, in interstellar clouds, even in the deadly Venus atmosphere. But Edward Steele's team went much further than the panspermia hypothesis. In their new paper, scientists admit that octopi could not have appeared as a result of terrestrial evolution. Researchers consider the genetic and behavioral diversity of modern cephalopods such as squid, cuttlefish, and octopi to be extremely unusual. At the same time, complex anatomical features such as a nervous system with a large brain, highly unusual chambered eyes, and lightning-fast camouflaging all appeared within a relatively short period of time. The octopus genome has 33,000 protein-coding genes, which is more than in humans. Some genetic features contrast sharply with those of other cephalopods. Steele's group believes that such genetic features couldn't have emerged through random mutations. That is, these genes are of cosmic origin. Researchers think it's plausible that frozen octopus eggs came to Earth with the comets. Of course, the theory has been mercilessly criticized and ridiculed. According to Science Alert, although this work is interesting, it's highly speculative. Editor Dennis Noble suggests that the article was published only to rekindle the debate of the origin of life and evolution, as there we find more and more evidence of organic matter on other celestial bodies. Wherever octopi actually originated, in many ways they represent an alternative course of evolution, and they had plenty of opportunities even to build their own kind of civilization. The oceans certainly provide a lot of such opportunities. Underwater volcanoes, tides, sun, waves, and wind can serve as energy sources. Oil, gas, as well as nickel, manganese, and cobalt deposits are hidden at the ocean bottom. Even more, metals can be extracted from seawater. For example, one needs to filter only 50,000 cubic meters of water to obtain a kilogram of iron. Thanks to the diversity of marine life, one can easily develop biotechnological solutions, including bioluminescent lighting based on deep-sea organisms and coral-based construction. The water electrolysis makes it possible to obtain oxygen and hydrogen. And these are fuel components that would make it possible to start jet propulsion first in water and then in the atmosphere and near space. So why did octopi choose to remain animals, albeit very intelligent ones, if they had an immense potential for developing intelligence and even building some kind of civilization over millions of years? Why are we the pinnacle of creation and not them? The reason doesn't lie in the lack of intelligence. Ironically, their strengths have become their weaknesses, for example, some of their anatomic features. So the blood of cephalopods uses hemocyanin, which doesn't contain iron like our hemoglobin, but copper. That's why it's blue. Such blood is less efficient in delivering oxygen, so octopi simply lack it for many complex tasks. Their social self-sufficiency and solitary lifestyle played a cruel joke on octopi. Living not in packs, they don't pass on experience from one generation to the next. The octopus's lifespan rarely exceeds 5 years, with an average of 1 to 3 years. Each generation has to start learning about the world from scratch. Were it not for these factors, cephalopods and their relatives could have been impressively sentient. And one day the two-legged kings of the land, that is us, would confront the civilization of the eight-legged kings of the sea. Alternatively, the two could build the greatest inter-civilization alliance ever. However, it's never too late. Most likely, we're looking for our intellectual equals in the wrong place. Our planet doesn't provide a lot of opportunities for developing a marine civilization compared to ocean planets. Even though water covers over 70% of our planet's surface, it accounts for only about 0.05% of its mass. On a planetary scale, all the depths of terrestrial oceans are a thin film on a huge stone block with a molten core. Meanwhile, we find great oceans even in our solar system, such as on Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus. And that's not to mention the distant exoplanets. Some of them are billions of years older than the Earth and the Sun. It's hard even to imagine what kind of marvelous civilization could develop with such an impressive head start. But thanks to octopi, we can at least remotely imagine what these fantastic creatures might look like. Imagine a civilization that outnumbers humanity by 6 orders of magnitude, by 1.5 million times. And it's not some bacteria. These creatures have created a fully functional social order. They have a clear hierarchy, professions, and career ladders. They are long past the hunting and gathering stage and have successfully transitioned to agriculture and animal husbandry. They teach the youth, take care of the elderly and the disabled, and bury their dead. They can even reproduce by cloning. They've easily outlived every single species that prevailed on their planet in the last 100 million years. But at the same time, a simple infection can turn them into real zombies. Does it seem like some post-apocalyptic science fiction to you? And yet, it's not. It's all about ants. In this video, you'll find out how many ants there are on Earth, how much they weigh, when they emerged, how they live, how they practice agriculture, why their society resembles human civilization, and much more that will surprise and even shock you. Ants. We've all seen ants and may have a vague idea of how many ants there are on the planet. But few people are even approximately close in their estimation because the real numbers are somewhat mind-blowing. Today, there are 14,218 species of ants alone, and this is not considering the additional 1,758 subspecies. Nobody really knows the total number of these creatures. Most commonly, the ant population is estimated to be at about 10 quadrillions. That is 10,000 trillion individuals. Yes, I know, it's hard to wrap your head around this figure. In total, this giant biomass weighs approximately tens of billions of kilograms. What's interesting is that this figure exceeds the total weight of humanity as far back as 2,000 years ago. Ants inhabit all corners of the planet and all continents except Antarctica. They emerged about 110 to 130 million years ago, probably in the Laurasia supercontinent. Historically, they come from ancient wasps, but scientists haven't yet identified any specific wasp species as their ancestors. And despite ants' close resemblance to termites, the two shouldn't be confused. Termites aren't even related to them and are closer to cockroaches based on their family tree. Ants can vary in size by an order of magnitude. The smallest is about 2 millimeters long, and the largest species can reach several centimeters. The largest fossil ants in history belong to the genus Formicium. Their females reach 7 centimeters long, with a wingspan of up to 15 centimeters. Yes, ants have wings, and we aren't talking about different species. In general, all ants belong to the Hymenoptera order, which might give it away, as terra means a wing in Latin. But for the most part, only females and males have wings, and worker ants are wingless. Hold on, what? Does it mean that workers are neither females nor males? That's not a mistake, as we deliberately distinguish between worker ants, males, and females. In fact, worker ants are technically females, but they have an underdeveloped reproductive system which effectively renders them asexual. How do they reproduce then? Well, they don't. In the ant community, reproduction is a privilege, an honor, and a great responsibility. Having this privilege doesn't have to do with being the fittest or strongest one, but comes by birth. Being a highly diverse species, ants have many reproductive strategies. The most common one is the usual mating of a male with a female, but this seems ordinary only at first glance. In fact, ant reproduction is filled with such a powerful mix of drama, romance, and grotesque that people never dreamed of. It all starts with a nuptial flight. This is a special time for insects when new colonies appear at all planet latitudes where comes the spring. Winged females and males leave the nest to mate and form new families. This is the only time in the life of ants when they use their wings for their intended purpose. Ant wings are clumsy and function poorly. Females often climb high plant stems and use them as a launching pad to start their flight. Males are more agile and often take off directly from the ground. Mating itself happens in the air, right in mid-flight. Yes, nature is sometimes that romantic. But that's where the romance ends. After mating, the male no longer has any life purpose and soon dies. What does the female do? She flies away from her former home. Upon landing, it immediately bites off its own wings. What for? Because she doesn't need them anymore. The female is fertilized only once in her life. There will never be a second flight. Ever. The future queen begins to look for a place to form a new colony. The genetic material left by the male is enough for the female to lay fertilized eggs throughout her life. And queens live for a very long time, up to 12 to 20 years, depending on the species. Simple worker ants live no more than 5 years. However, it's worth noting that such breeding patterns are typical for most ant species, but not all. In some species, workers can also mate and produce offspring. And in some species, hit the other extreme and reproduce by cloning. No laboratories or test tubes, but the idea is somewhat similar. For example, an species called Mycoseporus smithii reproduces by parthenogenesis. In this type of reproduction, females emerge from unfertilized eggs. And these are not some extra eggs that the males didn't have time to get to. The thing is that there is no one to fertilize them. There are simply no males. In the process of evolution, the species deemed them to be non-essential. When colonies of Mycoseporus smithii were discovered in the Amazon basin, scientists were amazed at this turn of natural evolution. All individuals in the discovered colony were females, and all of them were exact copies of the same queen, and naturally, each other. The data was published in a report by the research team in Proceedings of the Royal Society. The researchers admitted that they stumbled upon this amazing fact by accident. They noticed that the males were missing while studying other aspects of this species' life. Not being able to identify males in the nest based on external signs, scientists conducted a DNA analysis of the individuals they collected. They found that all of them were indeed females, and that they were all queen clones. After that, scientists found that the most important reproductive organ in a queen, the copulatory bag, has completely lost its function. However, several years later, large-scale research revealed that individual populations of this species didn't completely lose sexual reproduction. But this doesn't change anything, since 90% of all selected individuals in all of South and Central America turned out to be clones. Coming from different queens, but still clones. And this means that Mycoseporus smithii finally choose its reproduction method. But it can be a tragic mistake. Because this reproduction method can't provide sufficient diversity. The species becomes extremely vulnerable to external threats and may face rapid extinction. However, the disappearance of one species doesn't affect the stability of the ant kingdom as a whole. These guys easily outlived the dinosaurs, so they're unlikely to be seriously endangered. And given how ant society works, it's time to think that these guys may well build some kind of alternative civilization. In terms of social structure, ants are the closest to humans on Earth. Each new discovery in myrmecology, the science of ants, proves this once and again. The anthill has a strict hierarchy and distribution of roles. The nest is managed by the queen, the founder of the colony, who lays eggs. The queen is surrounded by a retinue of 10 to 12 worker ants, who serve her by feeding and taking care of her in every possible way. As a rule, mostly young ants do this. This is literally a kind of social practice that all nest inhabitants go through for about a month. The task of such trainees is to take care of the queen, eggs or larvae. Mature individuals go to the farthest part of the anthill patrolling area where they engage in foraging. The ant brings the food it has found to the authorities, who decide how it gets distributed throughout the anthill. In addition to food, the anthill is also fed with a special pheromone, an odorous substance secreted by the queen. It contains information about her health. Ants from the retinue lick this substance from the queen, carry it in a special goiter, and pass it on to each other one by one. Thus, all individuals of the ant society are connected to one information space. A small-town social network of ants, if you will. What's interesting about ants' life is how they bring up their offspring. Ants can learn interactively, that is, acquire knowledge based on someone else's experience rather than their own mistakes. This is generally something extraordinary for insects. The most experienced and tough forager hunter is the first to attack the prey. It shows the young its skills on how to attack, sting, and kill. That's how it teaches the younger generation hunting skills. But in order to learn successfully, one needs to have a good memory. And the ants can't complain. Active foragers who look for food on their own can perfectly know their hunting area and remember how to get home. If the ant path is blocked by an intricate labyrinth, the foragers will eventually find a passage after wandering through some nooks and crannies. And then they remember the labyrinth path for at least 4 days, even if they have to stay put due to bad weather during this time. Ants have a good sense of time and effectively use it. If a feeder is placed strictly at a certain time near the ant path, the foragers will quickly remember the time when the food appears and will gather at this site just in time. If the feeding stops, the ants will still come to this place for another 5 days at the very same time. Phytol ants are very well organized. At the first warning signal, they only prepare the family property for moving. They bring the larvae and pupae to the exit and only a small part to the surface. As if hoping for a false alarm, the ants don't actually start fleeing until the danger is confirmed. Given such a complex interaction, how do thousands of ants manage to communicate effectively? How do they know where to go, what to do, and how do they remember all this data? In fact, they don't have to remember anything, and their communication methods are much richer than they seem. Ants don't have ears as humans do. They hear by measuring vibrations. Special knee and leg sensors help them pick up the vibrations around. Some ants make sounds by stridulation, a characteristic chirping produced with the stomach and jaw segments. Sounds can be used to communicate with the colony members or even with other species. But perhaps the main communication method is the smell. Ants leave pheromone traces on the soil surface, which are easily picked up by other individuals. In species that feed in groups, the foraging ants mark the trail on its way back to the colony after finding something tasty. Other ants follow this trail and reinforce it with their pheromones when they go back to the colony with food. When the food source runs out, the returning ants leave no new trails, and the smell slowly dissipates. This behavior helps the ants cope with environmental changes. For example, when an established path to a food source is blocked by an obstacle, foragers leave that path to explore new routes. If successful, the ant leaves a new trail indicating the shortest path on its return. Successful trails are followed by more ants who reinforce the best routes. This is how ants form their famous trails. Ants use pheromones for more than just trails. A squashed ant emits an alarm pheromone that drives nearby ants into an attack frenzy and attracts ants from afar. Some ant species even use misleading pheromones to confuse enemy ants and cause them to attack each other. Pheromones are produced by many structures in the ants' bodies. Dufour's glands, venom glands, as well as the glands in the hindgut, coccyx, rectum, sternum, and hind leg are all used for pheromone communication. Ants also exchange pheromones with each other, mixing them with food, thereby transmitting information within the colony. This allows other ants to determine which task group other family members belong to. Also, some ant types have more than one queen in the colony, but a whole cast of queens. And when the dominant queen stops producing a specific pheromone, it signals a change in power. the workers begin to take care of another queen, who becomes the dominant one. The variety of communication modes combined with tiny but extremely rational brains give ants an amazing advantage in building a civilization-like society. Being infinitely far from higher mammals, and especially people, ants nonetheless turn out to be capable of agriculture and animal breeding, in the most real sense of the word. Most ants are generic predators, scavengers, and herbivores. Many herbivorous ant species rely on a unique symbiosis with their own gut microbes to enhance the nutritional value of the plant food they harvest. But many ant species have achieved some remarkable results by following the path that was once chosen by humans. Specifically, ants have developed their own brand of agriculture. This practice has spread so widely that ant farming can now be clearly classified. The most primitive, lower agriculture was mastered by 80 ant species. 34 species of ants grow coral mushrooms for their needs. And 18 species practice yeast breeding. Finally, 63 ant species have mastered higher agriculture. They learn to grow mushrooms and create entire mushroom gardens. What's even more surprising, some special mushroom varieties have emerged that were literally domesticated by generations of ants. These mushrooms can no longer survive in the wild, but only at ant farms, under the watchful care of these amazing creatures. A colony of leaf-cutting ants represents a good example of such agriculture. They arrange entire mushroom plantations and use finely chopped leaves as a substrate. Yes, you heard that right. The ants bring the leaves to the colony and cut them into small pieces to use as fertilizer. And even in agriculture, ants retain a clear specialization and a set of professions. Basically, an ant's job depends on the size of the individual. The larger workers cut the stems. Smaller individuals gnaw the leaves into pieces, and the smallest tend to the plantation. They even protect mushrooms from harmful bacteria. The bacteria that produce substances that act as an antibiotic against other bacteria that are dangerous to fungi live on the outer surface of the ant's body. Leafcutter ants are sensitive enough to recognize the fungus's reaction to various plant materials by picking up mushrooms' chemical signals. If a certain type of leaf is found to be toxic to fungi, the colony will remember it and won't pick it again. Such a high level of self-organization of ant communities can shock almost anyone. As if this wasn't enough, the ants went one step further. How do you like the fact that ants have also managed to master animal husbandry? Part of being active and formidable predators, especially considering their size, ants have learned to keep livestock. But instead of cattle, they breed aphids, who secrete special nectar called honeydew, which is a valuable high-energy food. Ants graze aphids on nearby plants and take care of them, protecting them from other predators. They learn not only to collect the nectar secreted by aphids, but also to literally milk these tiny insects. To milk an aphid, the ant tickles its abdomen with its antennae, and the aphid obediently releases excess nectar at the ant's first request. Interestingly, this doesn't even come close to parasitism, since without ants' care, aphids die much sooner from other predators. When migrating to another area, many ant colonies take aphid herds with them. The parallels with our animal farming are quite obvious here. Looking at all these achievements, one might think that ants represent some kind of flawless life form. They have an invincible, incredibly precise, and rational collective consciousness. However, their way of life only seems to be flawless at first sight, as it has some major downsides. And when taken collectively, these downsides may sometimes lead to a full-blown tragedy. Look at this. What's this? Are the ants celebrating something? Wedding? Or perhaps a ritual dance? No, this is the so-called death circle. Almost all of these ants will soon die. They will continuously spin in this deadly circle to the point of complete exhaustion. But what for? And why? In reality, this phenomenon occurs due to a system error. Remember, we've mentioned how well pheromone trail marking works for ants. But even though developed through millions of years of evolution, this system might play a cruel joke on ants. If a group of ants makes several turns in the same direction along the route, it may stumble upon its own odor trail, left just a minute ago. After walking along the path, the insect makes the same turns again, going back to the same point, and the cycle repeats over and over again. The most annoying thing is that when following their own footsteps many times, the ants keep on secreting pheromones. In doing so, they reinforce this vicious circle and their own confidence that they're going in the right direction. These cheerful and unsuspecting ants are joined by their friends, who have absolutely no idea as to what caused this massive procession. The result of this march is easily predictable. Thousands of individuals die from exhaustion in this deadly dance. Only an accidental external intervention can save them. The largest death circle was observed by the U.S. traveler William Beebe in 1921 in Guyana. He claimed that Eciton ants created a 365-meter-wide circle, and their self-destructive march lasted 2 days. By the way, such whirlwinds aren't that rare, and almost all types of ants can be sucked into the death circle. Unfortunately, ants do this as a part of ingrained behavior patterns. Such accidents happen all the time wherever there are several ant trails nearby. However, we simply walk by most of them, and often only a few individuals fall into the trap. On open and flat terrains, such circles may reach truly gigantic proportions. And it looks creepy. The ants behave like some kind of zombie. But did you know that ants can actually become zombies? No kidding. A typical zombie apocalypse scenario we see in movies is an infection that turns people into creepy, mindless creatures. But nature has a similar eerie scenario. This is Cordyceps lopsided. It seems to be a harmless fungus. But if ants had dreams, this fungus would surely be their worst nightmare. Being infected with the spores of this fungus is the most terrible thing that can happen to an ant. Once in the ant's body, Cordyceps spores begin to germinate inside, controlling the insect's behavior more and more, in the most real sense of the word. To turn an ant into a docile zombie, the fungus simultaneously affects several important functions of the nervous system. It disrupts the ant's daily routine by interfering with the genes responsible for circadian rhythms. What's even worse, the parasite affects the victim's sense of smell, its main communication channel. As a result, the infected individual loses contact with its friends, strays far away, and doesn't get back to the colony. At this stage, the fungus already controls its behavior, looking for optimal conditions to fully mature. Eventually, the fungus causes the ant to find a cool, damp spot and bite down on the bottom of the leaf on the branch. Once the ant bites the leaf, it can no longer let it go, as the fungus blocks muscle function. The fungus keeps on growing inside the ant's body until it eventually pierces its head and releases new spores. This whole process takes about 10 painful days. And most of the time, the insect is alive. A real nightmare, isn't it? Science has long known of this phenomenon, But until now, scientists have been unable to understand exactly how the parasitic fungus can control the ant's mind. It has often been called a brain parasite, but a study from February 2021, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, disproves this theory. It turns out that the insect's brain remains intact, and the ant is being controlled by introducing the mycelium into the muscle fibers throughout the body. In fact, an affected ant becomes an exoskeleton and a means of fungus transportation, while ant tissue cells are partially replaced by fungi. That is, the ant effectively becomes one with the fungus. Like a real puppeteer, fungus pulls the strings, forcing the ant to perform this terrible scenario, having no chance to get rid of this zombie influence. Nonetheless, despite all their weaknesses, ants firmly occupy their niche in the Earth's biosphere. And the structure of their society and how closely it resembles human civilization is even a little shocking. Who knows what kind of civilization leap they might make in the future? These animals aren't like any other living creatures on Earth. They look like they came from some other planet. Biologically speaking, they are quite different from all other terrestrial beings, which has put them in the spotlight a long time ago. At the same time, they look very funny, especially when dancing in the water. The offspring of these creatures are born not by females as usual, but by males, which sets them apart from all other terrestrial beings. The smallest species of these creatures are only 2 centimeters long, and the largest are up to 30. Their body is covered with spikes. They serve both as camouflage and protection from predators, because they don't know how to defend themselves. At the same time, they're very successful predators, with a whooping 90% hunting success rate, which far exceeds the rate of such dangerous predators as leopards, white sharks, or killer whales. They can also mimic chameleons. By changing their body color, they merge with the vegetation, thereby avoiding the attention of both predators and potential prey. They need to eat continuously throughout their lives, otherwise they run the risk of starving to death, since they don't have a stomach. The ingested food is absorbed and waste is removed right away. Their eyes can look in different directions at the same time. Very few living creatures on Earth actually have this ability. Strictly speaking, they are fish. And it's the slowest fish in the world. The smallest representative of this species can swim only 1.5 to 2 meters an hour. So what are these creatures? Our story today is about seahorses, mysterious and completely unique inhabitants of the world's oceans. In this video, you will learn where these amazing creatures come from, why male seahorses get pregnant and give birth to the offspring, some facts about their lifestyle, body structure, the benefits of an upright position. After all, they swim vertically like almost no other oceanic creature. The reason for not having a stomach, how these slow fish hunt, why is it nearly impossible to keep them in fish tanks, and many other fascinating and unusual facts. Seahorses. The first seahorses emerged on Earth at least 13 million years ago. According to paleontologists, this is exactly how old their oldest fossilized remains are. This period was marked by the emergence of such mountain systems as the Himalayas and Alps, and there were still 12 million years left before the Homo antecessor genus appeared, which gave rise to the human race. For many years, paleoichthyologists have wondered about seahorses' origin and evolution. And while earlier their origin was considered a mystery, there's been some substantial progress in this field in recent years. Fossils show that as far back as 13 million years ago, these fish looked almost like modern ones, which means that they had originated and evolved much earlier. A number of genetic studies on nuclear and mitochondrial DNA prove the existing hypothesis that seahorses originated through evolutionary transformations from pipe horse, which happened 25 million years ago. Indeed, if we mentally bend the pipe horse into a chess horse figure, get rid of its tail fin, twist the remaining stem into a spiral, and add more outgrowths, horns, on the muzzle, we would get a regular seahorse. It's likely that during its evolution, the pipe horse separated from the classic pipefish that already had a twisted tail and a slightly curved body, which later gave rise to typical seahorses. Using the most modern methods, paleontological research fully proves this theory. Therefore, the hypothetical alien origin of seahorses is just a beautiful mystical idea that was completely debunked by science. But where does this strange reproduction come from? After all, the pipe horses, who are the seahorses' ancestors, breed in the most common way, while in seahorses, it is the male that bears the offspring. This is also a very interesting story. More about that in a minute. Seahorses live in coastal shallow areas of tropical and subtropical seas and oceans, and cold water is actually harmful to them. There are about 50 species of these creatures, and each can flaunt a unique appearance and color. What makes them special is that they seem to have combined body parts of various animals, and not only marine ones. The head resembles a horse, but has a pointed mouthbeak like an anteater. The 360-degree vision and separately rotating eyes, as well as the ability to change colors and merge with the environment, are something that seahorses share with a chameleon. An abdominal pouch for bearing offspring resembles that of a kangaroo, and a twisted tail that seahorses use to cling to vegetation reminds us of some primate species. A miracle of nature, nothing less, nothing more. By fish standards, seahorses swim very poorly and slowly. Because of this, they lead a predominantly sedentary lifestyle, attaching their tail to sea plants, merging with them, and thus waiting for prey, becoming hard to spot for larger predators. That is why they live in shallow, grassy areas of the world's oceans, where swimming vertically is an advantage that allows you to masterfully blend into the environment. Vertical blades of grass and corals easily hide vertical fish, provided that it completely blends in with the environment's color and texture. Typically, seahorses live for 4 to 5 years. Seahorses live in colonies, but they can't be called schooling fish. They swim and prey alone, and breed in pairs. When seahorses choose a partner, most often they don't separate all their lives. Perhaps this isn't the most accurate comparison, but seahorses' colonies and lifestyle resemble not that of fish, but, you won't believe it, people. We also settle in colonies, otherwise known as cities or towns, and each person lives separately or creates a couple. Seahorses have a very similar way of life. Seahorses are the only vertebrates whose males bear children and give birth. In many known animals, fathers incubate eggs, protect and feed offspring. But only in seahorses do males bear fertilized eggs and give birth. Early in the morning, males perform a ritual dance. Each male swims around his chosen one, demonstrating that he is ready to breed. During the mating period, the male's shell on the chest turns dark. Seahorses are talented dancers who like circling each other or a floating object, flashing iridescent colors and intertwining tails in a courtship that sometimes lasts for several days. Bowing his head, the seahorse moves in circles around the female, with his tail slightly touching the bottom. This elaborate courtship dance takes place every day, but mating requires the male and female to mature at the same time. On a mating day, at a certain moment during the greeting ritual, the female abruptly raises her head and swims up, and the male follows her. At this moment, you can easily see the female's ovipositor, and the male widely opens up his pouch. The female directs the ovipositor into the wide opening of the pouch and lays eggs, which are fertilized by the male at the same time. The whole process takes only 6 seconds. It's hard to believe such high efficiency, but nature is rich in miracles, and science proves this fact with the help of videos and research. The male brood sac is analogous to the placenta in female mammals, providing oxygen and nutrients to growing embryos. But why, contrary to all the logic and reason, this function is given by nature to seahorse males? While this is a mystery to scientists, the only plausible theory that wasn't refuted by other hypotheses is that in this way, nature allows seahorses to produce the maximum number of offspring. After laying the eggs and entrusting the male with bearing embryos, the female begins to produce eggs again, thus making the process of reproduction virtually continuous. This is very true in a population of creatures where less than 0.5% of newborns survive until adult childbearing age. After all, seahorse fry, although fully formed and ready for living independently after birth, don't yet have armor and spikes like their parents, and become easy prey in the ocean jungle. Childbirth is a complex biological process that, in pregnant female mammals and reptiles, is controlled by hormones, including oxytocin. It causes contractions of the smooth muscles of the uterus. Smooth muscles are a special type of muscle that cannot be controlled consciously and are found in the walls of most internal organs and blood vessels. Scientific studies have shown that in male seahorses, the bulk of the brood pouch muscles are skeletal muscles, which are under conscious control. In other words, male seahorses decide when they give birth. Thanks to the six-pack abs, male abdominal skeletal muscles that are much bigger than in females, future fathers literally shoot batches of tens or even hundreds of fry, up to 1,500 eggs, during childbirth, quickly emptying the brood pouch. Despite the differences between the brood pouch and the mammalian uterus, the daddy fish can experience very strong labor pains during childbirth, making this a very exhausting process for the male. The male carries the eggs for 9 to 45 days, until the seahorses hatch, fully developed but very small. The young are then released into the water, and the male will often mate again within hours or days during the breeding season. While seahorses aren't known to mate for life, many species form pairs that last at least through the breeding season. Some species show a higher level of couple fidelity than others. However, many species willingly change partners when the opportunity arises. The mating habits of many other species haven't been studied, so it's unknown how many species are actually monogamous and how long these bonds last. The females have the final say when choosing a mate, not the males. In fish and other animals that don't have brilliant intelligence, monogamy is very rare to come by. However, the lack of intelligence, or rather the lack of long-term memory in fish, can separate a couple and they will no longer feel a liking for each other after just a few days of being apart. They will simply forget each other. Immediately after birth, seahorse fry begin to live independently from their parents, not being under their care in any way, like most newborn animals on Earth. As early as the first minutes of life, they begin to feed on microscopic crustaceans. However, they may become food themselves for other aquatic creatures due to their defenselessness, unformed armor, and small size. The structure of the body and tail is another unique feature of seahorses that calls for special attention. The body structure of the vast majority of marine animals protects them from predators. Razor-sharp fins, venomous spikes and needles, armor-like carapaces, skin pattern that mimics the environment. All these features are designed to ensure one's protection and survival in the ocean jungle. The defense that seahorses have is completely different from most living creatures known to us. Their body is covered with movable bony plates that slide parallel to each other, providing greater maneuverability during movement. This armor works better than, for example, in crustaceans, and at the same time is much more durable than fish scales. They are difficult to bite through or break, and can only be bent, allowing the seahorse to survive in the most dangerous situations. The seahorse's tail is square, not round like in all other animals. The skeleton of a seahorse's tail is made from L-shaped bone pieces that fit together to form these squares. The squares line up in rows that become progressively smaller towards the tail tip. Muscles attached to the skeleton allow the tail to move and even grasp objects. Compared to an oval-shaped tail, like in our beloved dogs and cats, the seahorse tail was found to be stiffer, stronger, and more resilient under shock loads. The tail of square prisms bends much better, and combined with the structure's rigidity, which almost doesn't allow the tail to twist, makes it possible to grab the surrounding objects more firmly. Grasping tails of any kind are super rare among fishes. Out of some 30,000 kinds of fish, only seahorses and their close relatives called pipe horses can get a tail grip. Yet within the seahorse family, the rare fish tails that bend into a hook have evolved independently several times. Square segments press more surface area against the body of the seahorse than round segments. This allows square tails to have better grip control and promotes seahorse survivability, an important part of their hunting and camouflage. In addition, scientific experiments have shown that when crushed, square tail plates are flattened, which prevents damage to the spinal column and saves seahorses' life when attacked. See how the square plate bends but doesn't break? Nature has given seahorses a unique body and tail structure. Of all the fauna, only they and some other types of chameleons have square-shaped tails. But they are no swimmers, and the problem is not the vertical position, but the fins. The seahorse has only 3 of them: a small dorsal fin, 2 gill fins near the head, which in fact serve as a steering wheel that allows them to choose movement direction. Pelvic and pectoral fins are absent. Because of this, some types of seahorses cannot swim faster than a few meters per hour. However, with a sedentary lifestyle, this isn't a problem for them. They don't rely on speed for survival or hunting, like other fish, but rather on their slowness. If they need to migrate to a new, more suitable place, seahorses travel on top of a larger fish, clinging to their fins with their tails and leaving their transport after reaching a suitable place, like their favorite kelp beds. The seahorse's swim bladder is located along the entire body and is divided by a septum that separates the head from the rest of the body. The cephalic bladder is larger than the abdominal one, which ensures the vertical position of the seahorse when swimming. In this position, which makes them strange and unusual creatures in the underwater world, is also their great advantage, allowing them to hunt as efficiently as possible and have the status of one of the most successful hunters on the planet. What makes their hunting successful? This question haunts many scientists, and a lot of research was done to answer this question, including a video recording of seahorse hunting, and even the creation of mathematical models that allow us to accurately calculate the algorithm of their hunting success. Few of the inhabitants of the underwater world can boast of such a high rate. And the answer is as follows. Hiding in algae or corals, seahorses slowly bring their head closer to the unsuspecting prey, and then they instantly suck it up through their tubular snout. This technique is known as pivot feeding. It relies on moving the mouth towards the prey by tilting the head upwards, which pivots at the neck joint. The suction is so fast that even frame-by-frame filming doesn't allow you to see this. This means that the process takes not tenths, but hundredths of a second. This is where the real speed of seahorses comes into play. It requires a lot of energy, which the seahorses can accumulate in the tendons associated with the head rotation, and then release, creating a powerful suction force. And the seahorse's elongated muzzle creates a calm zone around itself, where small crustaceans and shrimp, their main source of food, don't feel threatened and can come up very close. In this way, seahorses manage to achieve a hunting success rate of up to 90%, one of the highest hunting success rates among any predators in the world. To put this into perspective, less than half of the attacks by great white sharks, which terrify most aquatic inhabitants, end in success. Graceful yet powerful, leopards catch their prey only 74% of the time. And highly intelligent and cunning orcas that hunt seals, dolphins, and whale calves in well-organized groups, sometimes for hours on end, achieve success in up to 80% of cases. Meanwhile, small, slow, harmless-looking, and slightly ridiculous seahorse excels at hunting more than all of them. However, seahorses' hunting success is not a whim of nature, but a basic survival need, because they have neither teeth nor a stomach. How do they eat and digest food then? Well, the seahorse actually digests food with the rest of its digestive system, not with one particular organ. A special gland similar to the mammalian pancreas secretes digestive enzymes directly into the intestines, allowing food to be broken down as it passes through the body. Due to the absence of a stomach, this process occurs much faster than in other animals and fish. So the seahorse has to eat almost continuously and be an excellent hunter. Adult seahorses eat 30 to 50 times a day, and in some cases, the number of meals can be several hundred times. But if you decide to watch these amazing creatures on your own, remember that seahorses don't tolerate fish tanks because they are prone to stress. Once in an unfamiliar environment, they constantly feel frightened and nervous and often refuse to eat, eventually dying of hunger and nervous exhaustion. For example, shaking and rocking will almost certainly kill them if you decide to transfer a vessel of seahorses by a car or a ship. In total, there are about 50 species of seahorses in the world, but 30 of them are on the verge of extinction. The greatest danger for them is people. They're actively caught for souvenirs because of their unusual appearance. According to official statistics, only in China, 20 million of these unusual fish are caught annually. And this is not counting the massive cases of poaching that aren't taken into account. The depths of the world's oceans hide many secrets and wonders, incredible monstrous creatures, and perhaps those creatures that we don't even know about yet. But the seahorse, living in shallow water, has been well studied by scientists. That is why it is so delightful, demonstrating nature's incredible ability to create strange, yet almost perfect beings, combining seemingly incompatible things into one. A horse's head and a kangaroo's pouch, unique hunting skills, and a bizarre look. They take off with no run and rush to the target following all the rules of aerobatic flight. A tracking system with thousands of the most advanced optical devices helps to accurately determine the desired coordinates. Nothing can prevent these almost flawless assassins from attacking. What is this? Some kind of new super weapon? Or creatures from a fantasy thriller who want to conquer our planet? No, we're talking about well-known regular dragonflies. We tend to admire these spectacular insects with huge eyes, bright bodies, and transparent wings. They could be scarlet, green, or blue. Some shimmer like liquid metal, and others look like colored glass or enamel. They seem to embody goodness and beauty. In fact, these cute flying creatures are one of the most ferocious and successful predators on Earth. Even the names of dragonfly species often reflect their aggressive nature. For example, there are broad-bodied hunters and four-spotted hunters. The prey chased by a dragonfly is most likely doomed. Their hunting success rate is almost 100%, while in lions this figure reaches only 25%, in wolves 14%, and in bears 10%. Do you know how dragonflies manage to excel at killing? This is an absolutely incredible story. The insect's body structure and life cycle are so unusual that they could well have come from another planet. And even though dragonflies have a terrestrial origin, their world is simply mesmerizing. Let's dive into this world together and learn more about these amazing creatures. Cute and terrible, graceful and armed from head to tail. So familiar, yet so unknown. How did dragonflies survive the dinosaurs? When were they giants the size of a hawk? And who turned dragonflies into the most advanced super drones? Dragonflies. Scientists discovered the first fossil dragonflies in the deposits of the Carboniferous period, which took place 325 million years ago, and was the last in the Paleozoic era. Then it was warm and humid throughout the planet. Many lakes, rivers, swamps, and other small reservoirs have formed on land. The planet was covered with forests of giant spore plants, ferns, and club mosses. Their trunks reached a diameter of 1.5 meters and a height of 10 meters. Not a single dinosaur has yet roamed in these thickets, but the first animals also often resembled monsters from horror films. Giant Meganeura moni dragonflies flew among them. This monster's wingspan was 70 centimeters, 27.5 inches long. These huge creatures are even listed in the Guinness Book of Records as the largest prehistoric insect. The predecessors of our cute modern dragonflies had a terrifying look. They were notable for their predatory sharp jaws, bulging eyes the size of a saucer, and spiky legs. Why were they real giants? Most likely due to an excess of oxygen in the atmosphere. At that time, its content was 35%, which is almost 14% more than now. Then the amount of oxygen on the planet went back to normal, and dragonflies turned into the small flying insects we know today. Soon they had to face real monsters. Dinosaurs emerged on the planet and captured land, air, and water bodies over the course of millions of years. Some of the huge reptiles didn't mind dining on some slow dragonfly. Small carnivorous Compsognathus caught insects on the shores. Struthiomimus lizards were considered incredibly fast predators and most likely successfully hunted dragonflies. Huge flying pterosaurs attacked them from the sky. Can you imagine how difficult it was to survive in the cruel world of such monsters? But the dragonflies succeeded. After the dinosaurs' extinction, they continued to develop successfully. Witness the emergence of humans on the planet and their brilliant evolution. Dragonflies have changed little since those times. However, they immeasurably increased species diversity and spread throughout the planet. Did you know that you can't find them on only one continent? In icy Antarctica. Scientists know about 3,012 dragonfly species, divided into 11 families and 348 genera. So what? Hasn't anything new happened in the world of dragonflies? No, it turns out that these are far from all the species that exist on the planet. Every year, researchers record previously unknown dragonfly species. Meanwhile, the planet had some completely unique species of these insects. Here is a gorgeous bright blue darner. It lives in and near streams, lakes, and ponds in the United States. The family includes about 40 species divided into 13 genera. Black, blue, green, and yellow spots on the body of these creatures make them easy to support in the sky. And this neon skimmer, Libellula crocipennis from the skimmer family, is even more spectacular. It has a very rich bright red color that is very rare among insects. But wouldn't you say that its blood red hue brings vampires to mind? However, this is misguided. There are no bloodsuckers among dragonflies. Neon skimmer's chitinous cover got this color in the course of some weird evolutionary turns. The neon skimmer is from 54 to 59 millimeters long, with 32 to 39 millimeters falling on the abdomen. You can see it in nature near ponds, lakes, and streams in the southwestern United States, Central America, and northern South America. Somatochlora metallica has evolved to look even stranger. Look at these dragonflies. What comes to mind when you see them? Probably shining molten metal. Their body has a very unusual color, green with a metallic sheen, and yellow lateral spots. The striking bright green eyes shine like emeralds. These unique creatures reach a length of 50 to 55 millimeters and are most often found in Europe. However, dragonflies surprise us not only with their fascinating coloring. There are very strange species in terms of body structure and habits. They are a very strange species in terms of body structure and habits. The so-called black saddlebags you see live all over the US, Canada, southern Mexico, the Caribbean, and Hawaii. This is one of the rare migratory dragonfly species. You won't believe it, but insects with such a bland name are real romantics. They do their mating ritual and lay their eggs while making intricate pirouettes in the air. For this, they are called dancing gliders. So what about the giants? They still exist, although they don't reach the size of their Carboniferous ancestors. Here's the largest living dragonfly, Megaloprepus cerulatus, from the Pseudostigmatidae family. The largest males can reach a wingspan of up to 190 millimeters, with up to 100 millimeter abdomen. What sets this dragonfly apart is its size and strange feeding behavior. While the rest of its brethren grab all the available prey they can get, this species hunts exclusively the orb-weaving spiders. Like small helicopters, dragonflies hover over the spider web, hunt down and eat its owner. And they don't find adding insects stuck to the web to this feast. However, while patrolling their territory, these insects don't hunt as much, but rather harvest spiders. What does it mean to harvest spiders? Does the prey come to the hunter? In fact, orb-weaving spiders get killed because of their own laziness. They don't want to weave their own web and just occupy whatever net is free. It's enough for a dragonfly to fly up to the same web every couple of days and pull out more and more spiders. However, all dragonflies are very unique creatures. What makes them stand out from other flying insects? Let's find out by tracing the life of one particular dragonfly. This is the female of the most common species in the world, Pantella flavescens, that lives across all continents. Day 1. It's the end of spring. A tiny creature with long, thin limbs moves along the bottom of a small water body. This is the main character in our story, who's about to become a dragonfly. But so far is at the nymph stage. It's a larva that has partially turned into a dragonfly. It looks completely defenseless, but is it really so? Dragonfly nymphs are more bloodthirsty than even the cruelest predators in the animal kingdom. These insatiable insects eat all the living creatures they can overcome. Our nymph did just that. It tried to find and swallow as many mosquito grubs and other insect larvae as possible. Having come across a tadpole, the dragonfly larva ate it too. And then it began to hunt for small fish, scurrying around in a shoal. In an instant, the nymph threw out its hinged lip, grabbed the prey, and pulled back this terrible killing device. Its lip is a jagged mouthpart similar to the lower jaw. When the nymph doesn't hunt, its eerie lip is folded and held in front of its face. Some species of the Anax genus can jump out of the water to attack adult tree frogs. The nymphs themselves also frequently become prey. In particular, they can fall prey to herons, ducks, newts, frogs, fish, and water spiders. Day 2. This time the nymph didn't go hunting as usual. It stuck its head out of the water in the morning and learned how to breathe. Then it climbed onto the reeds and wriggled its way out of the exoskeleton, the outer cover of the larva. After that, it immediately began to breathe intensely, which allowed its body to fill with colorless hemolymph that started flowing through its veins instead of blood. But unlike blood, this fluid doesn't move through the blood vessels. It fills the cavity of the insect's body. Its role is limited to transferring nutrients, metabolic products, and hormones that heal wounds, as well as maintaining the body's water-salt balance. So our dragonfly was born as a quite ordinary golden red but still very beautiful insect. It had a medium body size of up to 4.5 centimeters, 1.77 inches, and a wingspan of up to 8 centimeters, 3.15 inches. All the time until the next morning, it spent almost motionless because its body was still soft and needed to become harder. Day 3. By morning, the dragonfly had its usual form. Now it needed food to finally get stronger. But on a cold day, it couldn't just pick up and fly like that. At first, like all cold-blooded insects, it needed to raise its body temperature and warm up muscles in the sunlight. It was early in the morning, so the dragonfly spent its warm-up in an upright position with spread wings. In the middle of the day, it might have chosen to sit horizontally. And some large dragonflies warm up their body by rapidly vibrating their wings. It was so stunning to see our dragonfly spread its transparent, graceful wings. Its wings are generally something that is ahead of time. They contain a network of longitudinal and transverse veins, with a parchment-like film in between. They are light and durable. The wings are directly set into action, which makes them stronger. In most other insects, the flight muscles are attached to the wing roots. Their thin wax coating creates a lotus effect, preventing dust particles from clinging to the wings. This allows the insect to fly faster and maneuver better in the air. With a flap of its beautiful wings, the dragonfly flew off to hunt. It quickly caught a few midges and mosquitoes, but by the middle of the day it became quite hot. The dragonfly's body began to overheat. Then it skillfully chose a shady landing place under a tree and sat down there to cool off. Dragonflies also adopt the obelisk posture to avoid overheating. On especially hot days, insects sometimes glide over the water's surface and quickly touch it. And some species prevent overheating with the help of dark spots on their wings that shade the body. Day 10. Having warmed up, our dragonfly, as always, went hunting early in the morning. It's already an experienced and merciless predator. Like in other dragonflies, its body structure, habits, lifestyle Everything in it was designed for the victory. 3 distinct body segments: the head, chest, and abdomen. Seem to be as ordinary as in other insect species. But upon closer inspection, one can clearly see it was equipped like a real warrior. The chitinous shell of hard plates, fastened with flexible membranes, perfectly protects its body during air battles with the enemy. A large, strong head with very short antennae also helps it to fight. Like in real cyborgs, Pantala flavescens' thorax is shaped like a rigid box with internal struts that securely attach the powerful wing muscles inside. The thoracic part has 2 pairs of wings and 3 pairs of legs. The joints of the long legs are equipped with spikes. In males, the row of spikes on each front leg has been modified into an eye brush. It is designed to clean the eye surface. But of course, the coolest part of the dragonfly is the eyes. Do you think they're just big and have a sharp vision? No, they are so complex that even the most modern technology cannot make their exact analog. 2 compound eyes cover most of the insect's head surface. They consist of 30,000 facets, segments that form a hemisphere and ensure almost a 360-degree vision. In addition, they have 3 simple eyes, or ocelli, and about 80% of the insect's brain processes the information from these multiple eyes. Dragonflies see much faster than we do and can capture about 200 images per second. Like other species, Pantala flavescens has no teeth. How does it manage without this must-have killer weapon? Everything is very simple. Insects use some really terrifying mouth parts. If you looked into Pantala flavescen's mouth, you could see a powerful sharp jaw. This killing device is perfectly adapted to instantly inflict mortal wounds on its prey. A multi-segmented upper lip at the front of the mouth helps this brutal death machine catch its prey. The insect can instantly throw its lip forward to grab prey. When the dragonfly goes hunting, its unique eyes allow it to find the prey, and the creepy lip just deftly snatch many insect larvae from secluded places on the ground, which could be found in abundance on the shore. Day 20. The dragonfly went hunting again in the morning because it needed food to survive. A warm, dry summer day seemed to be auspicious. However, this time, everything almost ended tragically. Although the insect flies very fast, some predators are even faster and can easily catch it. These include falcons, gear falcons, nighthawks, swifts, flycatchers, and swallows. Our dragonfly had just soared up into the air when a huge swallow covered it from above, and a sharp beak began to click above its head. It was the falcon that spotted its prey and tried to grab it. However, the dragonfly was up to the challenge. It began to make such pirouettes in the sky that the falcon's chances of success instantly dropped. The dragonfly can move in any direction, abruptly changing its route. It can also fly in 6 directions: up, down, forward, backward, left, and right. Over a long period of evolution, our golden brown dragonfly and its relatives have mastered 4 different flight styles. The counterstroking method is used for hovering and slow flight. In this case, the insect's forewings work 180 degrees out of sync with the hind wings. This method ensures great lift. A dragonfly makes a staged flap when its hind wings are 90 degrees ahead of the forewings. The insects use it to fly fast. This style allows them to create more thrust, but less lift than the counterstroking method. Synchronized flapping involves the front and rear wings beating at the same time. It's used by dragonflies when quickly changing direction as it maximizes thrust. Gliding with wings stretched is generally one of the main features of dragonflies when hunting. They usually use free flight with outstretched wings a few seconds before accelerating. Dragonflies also know how to glide up using the air current. And that's not all the features of insect aerobatics. Some families seem to have mastered unique flight mechanisms. For example, ReYOUniverse takes off very quickly. However, its wings initially move almost vertically. Australian male dragonflies of Hemianix papuensis species use a complex movement for camouflage. They change their flight trajectory in such a way that they seem motionless to their enemies. Our dragonfly used all its abilities to escape from the falcon. It soared into the air, flapping its hind wings out of sync with the forewings, then switched to synchronous flaps, quickly changing direction and accelerating to maximum speed, and unexpectedly slowed down when needed. Finally, it glided into a large tree and the falcon lost sight of it. Fortunately, it got lucky this time. Day 21. In the morning, the dragonfly immediately went hunting. Summer has already begun and the weather was warm, so it didn't need to warm up before taking off. It flew very fast. Dragonfly's flight speed is almost unsurpassable. According to the Guinness Book of Records, the Austrolabia costalis dragonfly holds the title of the fastest insect in the world. Its short flight speed reaches 58 kilometers per hour, 36 miles per hour. There are other fast flyers as well. Many large dragonflies, such as falconers, have a maximum cruising speed of 36 to 54 kilometers per hour, 22 to 34 miles per hour. They've been recorded accelerating up to 4G in linear motion and 5G in sharp turns while chasing prey. Our Pantella flavescens who went hunting wouldn't keep up with the champions, but it still rushes very fast at 16 kilometers per hour, 9.9 miles per hour. Here next to it, we see a bumblebee and a cabbage butterfly. However, the bumblebee is instantly lost out of sight because it can fly no faster than 3 kilometers per hour, 1.9 miles per hour. The butterfly also lagged behind the dragonfly, moving at a speed of 9 kilometers per hour, 5.6 miles per hour. Soon, the golden huntress noticed a large midge. It needed to quickly slow down to catch prey. Dragonfly has a cool braking system. Its head has a restraint system in place with muscles and small hairs at the back of its head. This unique system is also activated during the tandem flight of a female and a male. And this time, after brilliant braking, our dragonfly got its coveted dinner. And then a huge wasp suddenly appeared from around the corner and chased the dragonfly. It was a very dangerous and incredibly cruel rival who could do things that even medieval torturers wouldn't have dreamed of. Some wasp species successfully attack dragonflies, turning them into a pantry of nutrients for their offspring while still alive. The wasp lays an egg in each insect it catches, getting a nest ready. Thanks to its speed and skillful flying, our dragonfly has managed to escape the massacre. The wasp flies no faster than 9 kilometers per hour and cannot maneuver as quickly as a dragonfly. The dragonfly quickly left behind a dangerous enemy. Day 26. In the morning, the dragonfly went hunting again. The dragonfly saw a large midge. This would be enough food for the whole day. But the midge was very far away and moved from one direction to another. How to catch it? Fortunately, our dragonfly can work not only its wings and sharp jaws, but also its head. Are you surprised? Indeed, what kind of intelligence can an insect show? It turns out, quite high. Scientists from the University of Adelaide have discovered the incredible abilities of a dragonfly's brain. They can predict how their prey would fly because their brains can perform visual tasks. Previously, only mammals, primarily humans, showed such abilities. Dragonflies can do this using visual and nervous processes in their body. Scientists managed to identify the specific neurons that detect the target. These neurons allow you to focus on a small object that moves against a complex background. This is what we see when people track and catch the ball in a crowd. Dragonfly neurons can also choose a single target from a massive amount of visual information received by the brain. For example, the data on another insect's movement, and then predict its trajectory and future location. Such insects' talents can be applied when developing artificial vision systems, for instance, in unmanned vehicles. Well, it helped our dragonfly. Having calculated the midge's trajectory, it rushed to intersect it, and as a result, it managed to get plenty of food and ripped the prey to pieces with its terrifying jaws. Day 27. The weather wasn't favorable to flying. It was raining, and the wind was blowing. But today the sky cleared up and the dragonfly went hunting at the water body where it was born, and then spent all the days at the shore. And it didn't find anything. No, it wasn't a glitch in its internal navigation. People simply drained the water because it got in the way of another highway. Yes, the main enemies of dragonflies aren't falcons or wasps, but you and me. People cut down forests, block rivers with dams for hydroelectric power plants, and drain water bodies. Dragonflies are losing their habitat and dying out. We risk leaving the world without these amazing creatures. What will it be like? Probably not so bright and diverse. People have been fascinated by these graceful flyers for a long time. Most commonly, incredible dragonflies symbolize goodwill and purity in local cultures. But this was not the case everywhere. Europeans sometimes associated dragonflies with something dangerous to humans. Some English vernacular names such as devil's darning needle and ear cutter associate them with evil or injury. With their powerful jaws, adults can bite through human skin, although this happens very rarely. But the wound from the bite will be small, just redness that will go away in one day. Day 30. In the morning, the dragonfly set off looking for a new reservoir that would be safer and richer in food. It flew further and further. Do you think wings can carry Pantella flavescens only along the shores of lakes and rivers? No, this strong and agile flyer can migrate even across the sea. 10, 20, 30 kilometers. And here it is, the long-awaited place, a beautiful lake full of midges and mosquitoes. The dragonfly hastened to this paradise. But suddenly, an angry owner who didn't tolerate strangers got in the way. Dragonflies are real monsters not only when it comes to hunting. Males fiercely guard their territory against their own kind. Some signal their rights with bright colors on their head, belly, legs, or wings. The common whitetail, Plathymus lydia, rushes towards the intruder, holding its white belly up like a flag. Most often they engage in aerial combat and quickly drive the intruder away. This is the male that flew towards our dragonfly. However, males don't fight females. The female dragonfly simply has to mate with the winner, who has seized control over the territory. And our traveler gracefully accepted the courtship of a tough dragonfly guy. Day 33. This day was special for the pair of dragonflies. In the morning after mating, they flew together to lay fertilized eggs in the lake. In the past, the male's excessive attention was pestering his girlfriend. Females may even resort to trickery, pretending to be dead so that the boyfriend would leave them alone. But this day was different. The male turned into an ideal and very caring spouse. While the friend was looking for a place to lay eggs, the male hovered above. Suddenly, a bee appeared nearby. Not being afraid of a formidable rival, the male immediately started to ram. The bee had to retreat. So the male drove away everyone who flew by. And then it did something incredible. It embraced the female in tandem flight. So the dragonfly spent less effort in the air and more on laying eggs. Finally, it found a quiet place that was just right under the water. With its sharp ovipositor, it cut the stem of an underwater plant and released its eggs into it. The male flew around all this time, and when the female finished laying eggs, the male helped it get out of the water. The dragonfly will lay eggs more than once, but most of its life has already passed on this first egg laying. On average, dragonflies live no more than 7 weeks. But the nymphs will hatch from the eggs in a week. They will be in this stage for a long time, from 2 months to 5 years. And then, as if by magic, they will shed their exoskeletons, turning into magnificent dragonflies. We will be able to admire their beauty and grace, and use their services in killing harmful insects, especially mosquitoes, and learn from their experience. How would you like for dragonflies to take part in developing the most advanced technologies of the future? It's not a joke. Dragonfly's flight have inspired a team of researchers from the University of South Australia to design a drone. What developers found particularly valuable is the insect's ability to turn at high speed and take off with a load more than 3 times its own weight. A team from Australia has made 3D printed models of dragonfly wings and other body parts to study and build the flying machine of the future. Engineers at a technology research company in Cambridge Draper and neuroscientists at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute went even further. They have successfully combined technology and dragonflies' capabilities. The team equipped the insects with miniature backpack guidance systems to control the dragonflies. The result was super efficient living microdrones controlled by people. Such unusual hybrids are able to use sensors to track climate change and animal migration, and even provide information when rescuing people. Now, scientists are conducting new research on dragonflies' unique features. And who knows what amazing discoveries they will make in the near future.